Keaton's the type of kid as an athlete that I think when you're going to draft a team, if you're talking a kid that's going to be a fighter, a warrior, a leader, an athletic kid, I think he wraps all those things as a coach or a manager that you want to have in your guy.
It's almost like he's a superhero. You can't defeat the guy. He's got an S on his chest, and you don't know how many times you shoot at him, it just bounce off.
I really thought this might break him, but it didn't. It just made him stronger.
The day Keaton was born is just, I think everything just in my mind was opened up to what was going to be like with him throughout my life, sports, and what kind of son I was going to raise.
Whenever I was 5, my dad was the head coach at Arlington Sam Houston, and then whenever your dad's a head coach at a big Texas 5A school, it's a pretty big deal around here. And ever since I could remember, I've been going every Friday night to a football game and watching them play and follow them all around the state.
I can remember we got beaten by Abilene 52-10, and he might have been 6 or 7 years old, and I remember making him ride the bus back from Abilene with me, and me and him laying on the bus, him falling asleep on my chest and riding back to Arlington just so I could have some comfort after a 52-10 butt kicking.
Just seeing him on the sideline, how intense he was, and always yelling and ripping players. And at halftime, I'd look for him, and he would never be there at halftime. And one day I kind of asked him, "Where do you go at halftime?" And he goes on these walks to kind of just clear his mind at halftime, which I thought was kind of crazy.
The practice fields are in pitch black, and I see this shadow running at me, and there's Keaton. He's probably in 4th or 5th grade.
I came up to him and asked him, "Hey, can I go on a walk with you?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." And I just thought it was crazy. We were going on the walk in the middle of they compare football to a war. In the middle of a war, he's asking me stuff like, how was your day at school, and what'd you learn, and it just kind of meant a lot that he was worried about me at that time and in the middle of a big battle. Probably about the time whenever I could first grab a football, my dad, he'd always bring me out in the front yard and we'd play catch with each other. And whenever I first started playing, he kind of told me, I don't know if he was serious or he was joking, he said, "Hey, tell your coach that you want to be quarterback." And I already wanted to be that, so I didn't have any problem actually telling him.
Lucky for him and I think for the rest of us, he wanted to play, and he was good at it.
At a young age playing football, I had success as a quarterback, and I was probably up there with the best quarterbacks in our little league, the Arlington Optimists. And we won, I guess 3 out of our 4 years. We made it to the championship and won, and we had a really successful team. And I just fell in love with I guess the success of being a quarterback, and the kind of the glory that you get and the responsibilities that you have as a quarterback. I can vividly remember about 7th grade, whenever I was at Shackelford, hearing the Lamar Viking Band play over at Cravens Field and just kind of getting the goosebumps and feeling alive inside. And I kind of realized that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to play quarterback for my dad under the lights on Friday nights.
Being a coach's son, I don't think people realize how hard that can be. There's a lot of pressure, and you're under the microscope and questioned as to why are you playing this position? Is it because your dad's the coach? And so he had to deal with a lot of that.
My sophomore year, I was actually the backup quarterback and kind of a a utility player. If they needed me on kickoff return, I kind of went wherever they needed me, and I got some playing time in some blow up games, kind of as a cleanup man, and hand the ball off and run the clock out. And then I remember week 4 against Arlington Martin, our starting quarterback, got a concussion, and I just remember them, kind of telling me, "Keaton, you're in," and I just remember adrenaline going all throughout my body.
For him to go into the Martin game at that high level, high intensity, it was tough.
I was 3rd and about 10, and it was a pass play. I dropped back and nothing was really open, so I was kind of scrambling, and their defense end tackled me, and my leg kind of got caught in the ground, and I felt a pop.
I walked over there, across the sideline, and he said, "Dad, something in my leg popped." And I said, "Well, you're all we got. In high school, you got 2 quarterbacks." I said, "You're going to be all right."
He comes back out and he tries, and he just can't push off his leg, and finally, enough was enough.
Turned out to be tore my ACL, and had to get surgery not too long after that, and rehab for 6 months to hopefully come back for my junior year and be successful.
Here we go. He's going into his junior year. He's going to be our quarterback. Great 7-on-7 that summer. Everything's exciting. We're going in. He puts up 450 yards of offense. First Mansfield, first game.
That second game, coming off that successful first game, we were playing Mesquite, who was another good team, and that second quarter was really back and forth, and we were moving the ball. There was probably about 5 minutes left before halftime. We were moving the ball, and we were about on the 50-yard line. It was probably about a 2nd and 10, and it was a downfield pass play, and I just remember taking my drop and kind of got flushed out of the pocket.
I remember watching him take off running, and he kind of, after that play was over, he just kind of walked back really slow to the huddle, and I saw him kind of grab his knee and do a little shift of it, and he tried to run another play, and then he just sat down on the ground, and I thought, this can't be happening again. I just thought it can't be happening again.
And then you find out that he tears his ACL again, and you're heartbroken over it. It's tough to deal with.
Got him and I sitting doctor's office, and Dr. Bothwell comes in and says, "Hey, he's blown it." Well, him and I we fell apart.
To grow up around football and to be a part of your life like it was our life, that's all we knew. We really didn't know anything else. Keaton didn't really know anything else. We never thought, what if there wasn't any football for Keaton? And with the injuries, we had to start thinking like that. So when that was taken away from him for 2 years, it just takes the wind out of your sails for your child, because that was all he wanted, and you want what your child wants.
Probably those first 3 to 4 weeks of rehab, I just kind of felt overwhelmed that, looking ahead, I have six more months, of rehab, because I remember last time how hard it was, and I just thought in my head, there's no way I could get through this again. But after those 3 or 4 weeks, I just kind of realized, hey, I have one more season, so let's kind of work as hard as I can the rest of this period to come back and make my senior year, magical, and make sure this does not happen again.
That happens. Go through all the rehab, gets out, gets done kind of early, goes through spring ball again. Same thing. We have a lot of success in 7-on-7. The kids are fired up. Everyone's fired up.
He comes back, and we're in the same boat. He looks fantastic.
We got through the first game with Mansfield. It was not impressive, but we got through it, and I was just excited it was injury-free.
That next game was week 2 against Mesquite, and it had been a pretty back-and-forth game. It was still the first quarter. It was 10-9, I think. It was the second time our offense had the ball, and we got the ball about the 50-yard line, and went out there. The first play was a run play for the quarterback, and I'd pulled the ball, and I was running trying to find a hole, and I couldn't really find anything, so I kind of made a cut to bounce outside, and right when I made that cut, I felt that same feeling in my knee, my right leg, and I just kind of slid to the ground. And as I sat there on the ground, I just, I thought, this is my 3rd time to do this. Like, I just did it again.
I'm wondering why he's not hopping back up. He's sitting down on the ground. He's facing the sideline, and he's right in front of me, and he doesn't pop up, and he just shakes his head. And then he gets up and he limps off. He doesn't say a word to anybody. He just walks straight off the field.
I got up and walked down the bleachers and walked over to the locker room, and he was sitting on the table, and he was visibly upset, and I knew. And I think I probably went into shock at that moment.
You talk about devastation. The entire team was crying at halftime. Everybody was hugging. It was like we had lost a family member. It was awful, and we had to regroup and get our heads back on to go out and finish the game, because we still had another half to play.
I just thought, this has to be a bad dream. There's just no way it can happen 3 times. There's just no way.
after that game, I'd come home to the house, and my mom and dad were here, and I was really down, you know, kind of depressed, and in my mind, you know, I'm thinking I'm done with football. That was my last game. My dad kind of saw it in my eyes, and you know, he looked at me in the eyes. He grabbed me and said, "You know what? You're not done with football. You're not done with this season." And at that point, you know, I couldn't believe. You know, I thought there was no way that I could play on a torn ACL.
I just said, you know what? We're gonna try this because he's a strong kid. He's got good legs and calves, and you know, I've known that there's been people that, you know, I think Phillip Rivers might have played. I mean, people that played with it. So just not spread quarterbacks were always moving around. So it's kind of like it clicked, and I got home and I said, "Hey, son," I said, "we're not gonna get surgery." I said, "I think you can do this." I said, "If you can handle the pain, you've already blown your ACL. Let's see what we can do."
You know, after that next week, after my doctor had confirmed it was a torn ACL, I really thought about what my doctor had said, and really thought about what my dad had said, and you know, I kind of sat there on the sidelines and watched my teammates practice that week, and you know, I just kind of, it hurt working for something so hard, and kind of, you know, revolving my life around this sport. You know, I just kind of realized, torn ACL or not, you know, I'm going to finish my senior year, and you know, I'm going to play.
Then when he was actually ready to go, you know, they taped him up, and we got the brace, and they put him out there in the first quarter, and I was shocked. And it was a little shaky at first, but then it was almost like the same kid that I've watched play growing up.
When he went in at Weatherford and he threw and completed that first ball, the kids were more excited for Keaton coming back and completing that pass than they were winning the football game. And from that point on, practices were different, attitudes were different. The leader was back.
Although my season, you know, started off terrible, and you know, thinking I was done, now it's kind of turning into the season that I'd hoped for. Looking back, doing rehab after my junior year, I mean, we're undefeated in district, and I've thrown for 16 touchdowns and about 1,500 yards. So yeah, this season's pretty much shaping up to be, you know, what I dreamed it to be.
Nothing's ever been given to that kid. There's not one thing ever been given to him. He has worked his butt off to get where he's at, and that is what's so hard, because you know what that kid has gone through to get where he's at and do what he's done, and then he's gone through 3 of these, and it just seems like it's just trying to get taken from him, and but he won't let it. He won't let it.